Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I'm your host, PK Sullivan. Today we are going to be going through and digging up an old recipe from France. Soubise is a forgotten sauce from French cuisine. I don't know why. It's delicious. It is super simple and easy to make. It's really just 3 ingredients, plus however you want to spice it up. But it is onions that get sauteed in butter, then blended with cream. It is that simple. When Soubise is done right, it's a light and creamy sauce that pairs well with almost anything. It has a rich onion flavor, but it's also a great base for jazzing it up and creating sort of your own imprimatur for the sauce. I have a pork shoulder in the oven right now. I'm going to be pairing the Soubise with that after I jazz up the Soubise 5 ways. I'm going to make one batch and then spice up portions of it. The first is just going to be the plain Soubise, one that has a few herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, and oregano, a tarragon and black pepper version. Then I'm going to switch to things that are a little more spicy. I like to mix my own spice mixtures for common recipes I make and just have those batched up ready in advance. One of those is a Cajun seasoning. The other comes from a recipe for chicken shawarma. Soubise is one of the recipes that was collected by Auguste Escoffier. His version calls for thickening it using a bechamel. However, some of his contemporaries used different thickening agents. One of them specifically called for a veal gravy. More modern versions are a little more simple. They just use cream to thicken the pureed onions instead. It's a wonderful sauce. It's nicely sweet, has great onion flavor, but it's also something of a blank canvas. You can add different herbs or spices to it to create completely different taste profiles. I'm going to be using the modern version because it's the simplest. It's the easiest. It really does make a wonderful canvas for the rest of your flavors. So you're probably asking, who the hell is Escoffier? Valid question. Escoffier is basically the OG celebrity chef. He was born in the 19th century, lived until about 1937, and basically transformed how professional kitchens were run and the nature of high cuisine in Western society. You can't really talk about fine dining in the West without discussing Escoffier. He is that fundamental. That's really all you need to know. Ingredients: 2 onions, thinly sliced, 30 mils butter, 350 mils heavy cream, salt to taste. Now, the most important thing when working with a mandolin is safety. If your mandolin comes with a hand guard, use that. It's there for a reason. It will keep your fingers away from the blade and prevent you from cutting yourself. A lot of people are scared of mandolins. I was intimidated by them for quite a while. As long as you follow some basic safety precautions and follow common sense, you should be fine. In order to slice an onion on a mandolin, you just need to do a little bit of prep work to the onion first. Get a nice sharp knife, trim off the stem end, and then the outer layer of the peel. I like to cut through the first layer of onion from pole to pole in 4/4, just because then it peels off very easily and neatly with no mess. Once you've peeled the onion, trim off just the barest root end. And now your onion is ready to be sliced. On your mandolin, set it to your desired thickness. I'm going to do this on the thinnest setting because the onions just need to saute quickly and then will be pureed. I don't need large bits of onion. Then use your guard, place it on the food. You want to get the flat end of the guard as parallel to the cut where you trimmed off the stem end as possible. And then, working with swift motions, just run your food across the blades. I found when using a mandolin that it's helpful to press the food against the lip on the furthest side for me. That helps ensure even pressure with each swipe. For a clean cut, make sure the food goes completely past the end of the blade. And there you go. In about, 15-30 seconds, you have an onion that is completely sliced thin. Once you've sliced your onions, it's time to move them to the stovetop where you will saute them quickly and get them just softened before adding the cream. Set a 12-inch skillet over medium heat and add the butter. When the butter is melted and bubbling, add the onions and toss to coat. Cut to your time lapse as you saute the onions for 15 to 20 minutes, stirring frequently. You want them to give up most of their moisture and reduce in size but not caramelize. If the onions start to brown too much, reduce heat, add some water, and cover the skillet for 5 minutes. This will continue cooking the onions but will stop any further browning. You'll know the onions are done when they have reduced by over half and are starting to stick to one another. Cut back from your time lapse and add the cream. This time, use slow motion. Stir to combine. Bring to a simmer and cook for 5 minutes, stirring frequently to prevent the cream from scorching. Scrape down the sides as much as possible, as the cream will scorch very easily there. Remove the pan from the heat and transfer the onions and cream to a blender. Puree the sauce until smooth, at least a minute. The blender will thicken the cream as well as puree the onions, leading to the texture you want. You can blend spices into the sauce at this point, but avoid adding fresh herbs. After blending, your soubise is ready to serve, but from here you can also spice it up, add different herbs, different spices. It's a good way to make your soubise match the food that you're serving. I'm going to parcel this out into a few different servings, and I'm going to season each one differently. I'm going to mince the herbs for the first soubise. What's important here is to not over process them. You don't want to do that because otherwise they're just going to turn into a paste and they're actually going to lose a lot of their flavor. Instead, you just want to very carefully with a good sharp knife go through and chop them up nice and small, but don't go overboard. Don't get too nuts with it. The first herb mixture is sage, oregano, thyme, and rosemary. Sage is a large leaf and can be diced fairly easily. Cut it into strips and then crosswise into bits. Oregano leaves are a little too small to be that precise, so peel them by grasping the top of the stem tightly and gently running your fingers down towards the stem end. Then give the leaves a good rocking chop. Peel the thyme leaves the same way, but don't really worry about chopping them as they're already plenty tiny. Rosemary is easy to pluck and the herb is robust, both in flavor and toughness. These will bounce a lot as you give them a good rocking chop. Just pull them back in and keep at it. Assembling the spices. Herbs. Pour 180 ml of soubise into a medium mixing bowl. Add the chopped herbs and whisk until combined. Tarragon and black pepper. Add 180 ml of soubise and 30 ml of fresh chopped tarragon to your bowl. Then grind a good amount, like a lot, of pepper directly into the sauce. Whisk to combine. Shawarma spices. Another 180 ml of soubise, then 5 ml of shawarma spices. Whisk to combine. Taste, decide it's not enough, and add another 5 ml of spice mixture. Whisk again. Cajun spices. Again, 180 ml of soubise, 5 ml of spices. Whisk to combine. Taste and adjust. Whisk one last time, taste again, and question your decisions. I'm going to do a quick taste test. I have just a simple pulled pork with some roasted potatoes here. Let's give it a shot. Let's start with the original. The onion and potato flavor really goes well together. The original sauce is a classic for a reason, even if it's been somewhat forgotten. It's simple, straightforward, and delicious. Now we are going to do the multi-herbed sauce. Herbed with oregano, sage, thyme, and rosemary. The oregano and rosemary are right there up front, leading the charge. Definitely adds more depth of flavor to the sauce and complements the pork nicely. This sauce is less sweet. It's definitely more herbaceous and savory in that regard. This is definitely better with the potatoes than the plain soubise. Now for the tarragon. If I were to do this again, I might add more tarragon. It's pretty muted and subdued. I find tarragon to normally be a very assertive herb, which is why I don't use a lot of it. It really shines through on the potatoes though. That's the best of the three so far. For the pork, I think I prefer the multi-herbed as opposed to just the tarragon. Shawarma spiced Soubise. Wow. It is so different from the first three. It is the shawarma spices I use, so it tastes like a Persian restaurant. This definitely transforms the pork more than any of the previous three. And lastly, the Cajun Soubise. Whew, that's got a bit of kick to it. Unfortunately, that's all it's really providing. The sweetness of the onions kind of dampens any of the other big, rich flavors. I don't think the Cajun style really works, not nearly as well as the shawarma version does. That's utterly fantastic on the pork. There you have it. That's how you make Soubise, and a few examples of just how versatile it is. All you have to do is add some spices or herbs, and it completely transforms the sauce into something else. You can use really whatever spice mixes you have. I use some spice mixes I put together myself. Not everybody does that. I'm sure off-the-shelf spice mixes would work just as well. Just make sure you check the salt content so that you are aware of how salty things are going to be. I hope you found something you use here, and I hope somebody makes this. It's honestly a truly wonderful, simple little sauce. If you're doing a quick roasted chicken, that takes 45 minutes. You can have this sauce ready by the time the chicken is out of the oven. It's 3 simple ingredients plus whatever embellishments you want to add. Please give it a try. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you wanted your Soubise to have a smoother texture, strain it through a fine mesh sieve. I like super bags. Gently press on it, squeeze the liquid out, and leave the onion solids behind. It'll be hot when you do that, so be sure to use your barbecuer's trick of double gloving. You don't have to. The sauce is perfectly fine without it. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out as a new content creator. This week's shout out goes to my friend Dale, who is in town this week and acted as my production assistant / cameraman. Thank you, Dale. Means a lot.